Hi, my name is Carolyn Klauba and I'm the Stewardship Director for the Sauerland Conservancy. I want to talk to you about stewardship. So, ecological stewardship is the active participation in caring for the land to benefit our local ecosystem. And a steward shop is a workshop about stewardship, and generally steward shops take place at somebody's home and the work that they're doing at their home to benefit the local ecosystem. This year, we really want to focus on Sauerland Conservancy members that are taking active steps to reduce their lawn and replace their lawn with native herbaceous and woody plants that will benefit their local ecosystem. Some of these members went whole hog in and they fenced in a huge area of land and they did a really big restoration project on their property. Other members have done it in smaller bites, little bit by little bit, taking up the lawn and planting in natives. We really want to encourage everyone to be part of this stewardship initiative. Everybody can make a difference. So please join us in learning about how to reduce your lawn, planting native plants, and saving the Sauerland. Good morning. So today we're here with Ruth Jourjine at her house. Ruth is on our stewardship committee with the Sauerland Conservancy, and she also took the initiative to reduce her lawn, and she's done it in a different way than some other folks. So one of the big ways that Ruth went about this was just stopping mowing. And so Ruth, I want you to tell us about what this property looked like when you moved here, and your visions for what it looks like now.
Okay. Well, when I first moved here, there was very little landscaping ever done on this property. Half of it was let go wild, and then the other half was mowed. So this whole area was mowed, and I decided to take, just an initiative to stop mowing in the area that you can see behind me. And over the years, it's been 5, I introduced plants into this area, native plants, and try to encourage the pollinator population and birds, and it seems to be pretty successful at this point. The goldenrods all came up on their own, and there seem to be about 3 varieties. So it's a little bit every year. It's not high maintenance. I don't spend a lot of money to get where I'm at, but I really enjoy the results to see all the different varieties of insects of all kinds, wasps, etc.
So in the area that's right here behind us, I don't see a lot of woody plants. I just see a lot of herbaceous plants here. Do you mow periodically through this area, or do you just let it have gone the way it's been for the last 5 years?
About every other year, or sometimes, over the past 5 years, I'll take my super duper weed whacker and just knock down, especially the Joe Pye weeds, and in the winter it looks, flat almost. But I like to keep it going because the birds do go into it in the winter.
Okay.
So I don't do that until the early March.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's go and take a look inside and see what's going on over there. I see that you have no fencing, which has been different than a lot of the other steward shops that we've gone to, where folks have put up big fences to keep the deer out. So what's been your method to have these wonderful native plants, but without having any deer fence?
Well, one of the things is I try to work with the deer, and I find by experimenting what is the most deer resistant. A lot of them are labeled deer resistant, but deer are always willing to experiment as well and try them. So you can see here a deer has lopped off that goldenrod, which they usually don't eat, but it's coming back. So there are a few that they go after, but the vast majority here, they don't like. So I have the Joe Pye weed, very resistant, and New York ironweed in the interior, Culver's root. I don't know how they distinguish. It must be some incredible sense, but they know what's sort of poisonous to them. I don't know why. So that's how I do it. I don't really believe in deer fencing.
So you've tried a couple of different types of plants. You kind of just let the deer select what's staying and what's not. And I think, you know, that can be a really great method. I mean, not everybody wants to have deer fences, and you know, certainly deer have their favorite treats, but you know, it seems to be that new plants are their favorite plants. But you know, clearly it's working for you, and I think that's, you know, really great. And I love to see different approaches to solve a problem. You know, the same recipe doesn't always work with different ingredients, and each ingredient is everybody's own individual property because they each have unique characteristics in them. So
Yes.
I think this is really great, and I would love to get a tour of the interior. And I see that you built sort of a pergola inside, and you were telling me right before we started filming that birds really like to use that. So can you
Yes,
tell
they
me
do.
about what you did?
Yes, last winter I have some dead dogwood and cedar, and I just had this idea to put this center into the garden. If it's even called a garden, I don't even call it a garden, but it's become like a magnet for birds to perch, and I do have a bird nest gourd in there, birdhouse gourd, which was occupied. So I also took a piece of grapevine, which is a native plant that grows all around because of its curves. So you just kind of make it up as you go. But it makes a nice center if you have the inclination to sort of make it a little more formal and put that into it.
Well, I think, you know, also thinking about it as a whole system, when you go out into a meadow, there is a lot of times woody plants or a tree here or there that do provide branching and a nesting place or a resting place for birds. So even though, you know, that might not have been the first thought in that structure, it fills that niche and fills a purpose. So I think, you know, again, as people are moving through their properties and thinking about, you know, what type of space they want to create, you know, it can fill multiple needs for us and also for the environment. So I think that's really great. All right, so do you want to go and show me in the inside?
The New England aster, that's somewhere down there that keeps getting eaten. So put the milkweed in here.
So you had said that some of the plants here came up on their own, you know, just from you not mowing anymore. But you also sourced some plants. Where did you, you know, get the plants, and how did you decide which ones you wanted to include?
Well, for many years I've been a member of Friends of Hopewell Valley Open Space, and they have this wonderful program to encourage people to purchase at a great rate native plants. And they offer a list in the spring and in the fall, and for the 5 years that I've been here, I look over that list and I pick one or two. I don't buy dozens at a time, and then I try them. The mountain mint actually came from the house I was at before, and I just brought a little clump, and now it's all over, and the deer don't like it at all, and I love the silvery color to it. Sort of offers a contrast. And then behind me is Culver's root, which I tried 1 year, and the deer don't like that either. But it's just a beautiful flower, and there are bees on it right now. And this one, not in bloom yet, is New York ironweed, and I got that from Mike Van Cleef. And here it is, Mike. You see this. And
we're a big fan of Mike.
Yeah. And this will be loaded a little later on. So you can see everything sort of blooms at different times. I noticed the bergamot, the bee balm sorts of plants, and the red one up front, they sort of been in bloom for 2 weeks. And now the Joe Pye weed is about to open, and that will be covered in all kinds of things, bugs, birds, bees. So
having that like continual bloom, which is just such a great thing for our pollinators, where a lot of times folks think of, oh well, I want to have butterfly bush or just milkweed, and unfortunately butterfly bush doesn't support our native pollinators throughout their entire life cycle. It's not native. And our caterpillars don't eat those leaves. So having something like Joe Pye weed, where some bees will live in the stems over winter,
the hollow stem,
or they also eat the leaves. I don't know if we can see that, but these leaves are well carved into, definitely been munched, which is wonderful to see.
And they can have them. That's my attitude.
Right. And so we're supporting these pollinators throughout their entire life cycle, so they have a continual source of food, not just one bloom and then it's done, but one food source, then another food source, a place to overwinter, seeds to eat in the winter time. I think that's just so wonderful, and they're different seed sources that provide different amounts of fats and proteins and stuff like that for birds. So having that biodiversity, I think, is really important, and it's just so lovely to see all the life and all the hum of the insects in your garden.
That's why I do it, and also our awareness of the decline in native bees in New Jersey. I know a lot of research has been done about this because the agriculture departments have invested in this because it's so important to crops and our eating habits. So I like to encourage the populations, especially of native bees, which is mostly what I get. And there are people in the area that do have honeybees, and they're welcome to visit too. So one plant that I didn't mention are the whole group of goldenrod. There's like over 60 species, and those I did not plant. I think there's at least 3 or 4 varieties in here, and they bloom also in a wave throughout the season. And in September, they're especially prolific bloomers, and I do get a lot of butterflies. But today, there are no butterflies, so we're hoping for them.
They might come later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, again, what you were just saying about honeybees and native bees is really important. I think a lot of folks just think about save the bees, and they think honeybees, but honeybees are native to Europe. They're not native to here. And when we think about our food source, it's not just about our vegetables, but it's an entire food chain, which is something that we need to think about. And if we don't have our native pollinators pollinating our early ephemeral flowers and all of our other native plants, that's going to affect the entire food chain, because then there's not going to be food for other insects or small mammals to start eating those little seeds. And it just has this cascading effect. And so we can't just think we have to save the honeybee. We need to save our native bees, all the bees. Like you said, the honeybees are welcome to come have a drink, but we really want to support our native pollen. So tell me about these trees that are back here that you're protecting.
Well, this area I'm wanting to grow into a forest one day. It used to be a farmer's field, according to aerial photographs, but you can see it has a good start. It's about 60 years since it was a field, I'm pretty sure. So there's a pin oak and a tulip tree back there that came up as little seedlings on their own. And when I moved here 5 years ago, I spotted them and put small baskets around them to protect them from the deer again, because they like to be, not a big effort. But now you can see I have really healthy seedlings that are growing feet by the year. So this is just 5 years worth. It is in a well-watered area from the pot, there's this sort of dry bed that runs through here.
As you can see with all the ferns, that it must be wet.
Right. There's a whole lot of sensitive fern that comes through there. And then I also protect a few of the spice bush that have come up. And I planted here a witch hazel, so that the deer like. I did have to protect the top just to get it going this season, but when it gets above 5 feet, they'll leave it alone, and the males won't be able to rub their horns on it, which is not good either. So you can see once it's started, it kind of replicates itself, and you add a few understory and overstory trees, that you think will grow in the area. It's always good to see what comes up on its own, because then the soils are right.
Right, and another thing is that it's, like you said, cost effective. Rather than having to buy a big tree and protect it, that if you find what's growing here, clearly it wants to be here, which is a great thing.
Right.
And then, spending minimal amounts of money and time just putting something around it to get it over that deer browse line, I think is really great. And, we can also look at our landscape and look at the trees that are here to inform us about what we could plant, or also saying what is generally in this region but doesn't get a chance to get going. So, like your witch hazel, that's definitely native to this area, but it wasn't here. So adding that extra biodiversity is, the name of the game. We want to make sure we have as many different species. And again, the different fruits and the different flowers. With witch hazel, it's one of the late bloomers, almost winter bloomers.
Correct.
So again, it supports different organisms.
Right.
And, I think that's really wonderful.
Right. I mean, you can see, I guess one of the fast growers are the silver maples come up. And this one's in various stages of living and dying, but I did read that the acers, the genus
Acer.
Acer. They provide pollen for early bees.
Yes.
Those little red things that come out.
Absolutely.
So that tree is allowed to do its thing, and I don't prune it in any way. I want to see the deer coming off the top. Mm-hmm. And then behind it is a dogwood.
So we're in your backyard, and we were talking about that you want to make this area a forest, but as we're walking through it, it looks like this area could have, continued to be mowed, but you made a different choice, and in your mind you said, I wanted to make it a forest, and you've been going through and protecting things that come up, and adding biodiversity. But I mean, this is no small, piece of land. This is a very big area that you're actively making a different choice. And I think that's wonderful, because especially you can see a lot of dead trees in this area, and making that choice to think ahead and for the future, that by protecting these trees now, in 10 years, you're going to have, a low canopy, but you're going to have some canopy, and then over time, this area is going to transform. And I think that's really wonderful. It's no small feat. And so tell us a little bit more about some of the other plants that you added.
All right, so other than, there were certain trees that were here, and I don't know if you can see the big tulip tree up there. I call that the grandmother tree. And I read about how all the roots are connected and this forest wants to grow. It just needs the opportunity. So I have just added very few species here. One of them I'm standing by, is a hazelnut that I read is a really good food source for birds and bees. And then we have a dead cherry, and I'm protecting a native cherry, probably a cousin, that is coming up and will one day be as big as this American black cherry, is it? And then back there is another pinot coming up, and I have planted several young dogwood that I got through Fovos. But I planted 6, and I found that the moles in the winter destroyed 4 of the 6. So I have 2 left that I'm carefully protecting this winter from voles, but they seem to be doing well, and so those will continue to grow. And in the back, we'll get a photograph of, I have a ironwood that I put in, and I got that at Bowman's Hill, which has a huge variety of trees for sale in the spring and I suppose the fall as well.
Yeah, Bowman's Hill is another great resource. I know we've, talked a little bit about Friends of Hopewell Valley Open Space. Bowman's Hill is another great place to get native plants. DNR Greenway, Toadshade, which is right here, Wildridge Plants, Gino's Native Plant Nursery. There's a lot of different places, and some of them have crossover of the same species, but a lot of them, they each kind of specialize in their own group of plants. And I think, supporting these native plant nurseries is really important. And, sharing that with your friends and your neighbors of, hey, I got this plant, this is where I got it, why don't you go check them out? And I think that's, really great also to support our local businesses on top of our local pollinators.
Oh, I planted 3 pawpaw as well.
Oh, nice.
That a friend, there's one there, that a friend grew from seeds.
Awesome.
So it's, you get them from all sources that you can find, and you don't have to plant more than a few a year. Like I said, it's been 5 years I've been here, and so much has changed in those 5 years, and the vision is the long game, is that this forest becomes so prominent that no one will ever want to knock it down.
Right.
And it is protected because this area down to the stream is wetland.
Oh, wonderful. Well, let's go take a look at your ironwood.
From Slender Leaf Mountain. Is that what this is?
Yeah.
I was going to ask.